All right. What's up, everybody? I'm Lupinefiasco. I'm here with Ian Holland, Fandal Spirit on Blue Sky. LSS has made it very clear recently between skirmish season, upcoming ProQuest season, and now the knowledge that Worlds Philadelphia will be heavily influenced by Living Legend, including the top 8. LL matters, and I don't know anything about this format. So to solve that, I brought on Ian, who placed 20th last year at the Calling Chicago with Viserai, knows a heck of a lot more about this format than I do. We're going to pick his brain, get his thoughts, how to approach this, what's good, what's bad, the state of the meta, other various thoughts that Ian might have. We'll just get into it. Thank you for being here, Ian.
It's a pleasure. And I'm going to have to say this right at the outset, John. Fi is still not very playable.
Damn it. But he's got
Your Art
Belittle.
of Wars are still in the binder.
He has Belittle and Stubbies. Surely those are good.
Yeah, they are in Zed.
True. It's pretty good.
So I think LL is in a really interesting spot, especially with everything going on right now. But it is very much, like, on the face of it, this is a thing that I've said to a lot of people when they ask me, because I have friends prepping for Worlds or for ProQuest season, if you're not doing something busted, maybe reconsider it. That would be my baseline for interacting with this format. We are talking about flesh and blood at the highest power level that you can play in a constructed form.
So define busted, because when I think busted, I'm thinking Zen doing 50 damage Art of War turns on turn 2, or I'm thinking Starvo doing Crippling Crush for 13 overpower or 13 dominate go again. But then we look at Battlehardened Singapore, and Naib wins the entire thing with Ira, who I want to say his list was playing 8 banned cards, 2 of them being Zephyr Needle, which that's the whole point of the deck. But when I think busted, I don't think Ira.
Yeah. So the way I would look at it is the format, you're required to have a very strong proactive plan. So you think Zen, on your non-busted turns, your turns are still very good. Viserai can still have very strong turns. Briar, who we saw in the finals of that event, if you don't drop Channel Mount Heroic, you can still throw out 16-ish value turns. And that Ira deck goes above and beyond what should be possible in constructed in terms of like your average turn cycle off of 4 or 5 cards. And on the turns where you're not doing flick the needle, retrieve the needle, attack with the needle for 6, you're still just doing good, consistent, proactive things. So that's kind of where I see most of the format, like the top level of that format is aggro combo, consistent aggro, stuff like that. If you can put pressure on consistently, if you can put your game plan out there.
So if that's that being the case, like, do you think that there's room in the form? We know that CYB new top 8 Singapore. Like, as far as proactive game plans, is there room for reactive decks like new for old him? I guess other options that probably exist.
So like new, probably the most powerful of them, because you always have to play that assassin guessing game, or are they holding 2 CYBs? Am I dead? You know, that's kind of where new is at, but it still lags behind a little bit in terms of the most powerful things that decks can be doing. And if you know Count Your Blessings is a problem, a lot of decks, more so in this format than in any other, have answers to them. So for example, when I was in Chicago, prepped for CYB decks with Talisman of Cremation, because Viserai can play cards out of the Banish Zone. If you're on Ninja, you can play Tigers out of the Banish Zone or whatever, and that just will destroy sort of the value train that is CYB.
Yeah. And
I think Oldham, for all of his defensive powerhouse, Crown of Seeds is a massive hit to that, because then it's 1 blue is your CYB plus your crown, and the decks don't really carry a lot of damage. So what you're looking to do is beat decks that cannot go over the top.
Okay.
So I think some of the best decks in CC history, you've got things like Lexi, who, while, as you will know, having played Fi throughout that meta, could do some very egregious things.
Oh yeah.
Has a damage cap. And Oldham is saying, it's like, Oldham was a good matchup without counter blessings into Lexi. that's kind of still one that can be very difficult to navigate. You need to navigate it very, very, very particularly if you can get there at all. But something like Viscerai with Bloodsheet Skeleton, Briar with Channel Mount Heroic, Zen with everything that is available to Zen, and of course Starvo with his incredibly broken hero text. One of the things that I have found very interesting about LL though is because we don't have a huge amount of data on it bar battle hardens. I've played in a couple of skirmishes, and the interesting thing is people will come out in force going, oh well, I get to play my old hero.
Yeah.
And there is no changing that. And I think, for example, if you're looking at your pro quests or the upcoming calling in Philadelphia, it's going to be a lot of that. It's only when the pros take their hand to it that you might see that shift around a bit. And we saw that in Chicago with the Starvo deck that ended up winning, incorporating a bunch of new cards. Frozen to Death, which would never have been in the list. Michael Hamilton was playing Starvo without Crown of Seeds in every single matchup, stuff like that. So it's the same in every game, every format. Until the best players in the world are incentivized to play it, it kind of just rides along. So it'll be interesting to see how that develops in the lead up to the World Championship.
Do you think that for someone who's prepping for the rest of skirmish season or their pro quest, or maybe is trying to get a jump start on Philadelphia, how much of like deck I like do you need to prepare for? Like, it's going to happen in every calling, right? I just came back from calling Kansas City. People are bringing Victor and Volva, which you would think, well, this just dies to Gravy and Verdance. There's no way that you should play this deck. But people are always going to play the thing that they like, and Living Legend more than that because there's the nostalgia factor too. So how much, you said at the start of this, Stubbyfy is just not as good as a deck like Zen. But how much do I need to respect the fact that someone is going to bring Stubbyfy and I might run into it? And like, Fi's not really a good example because he just does a bunch of damage. But maybe something like a Lexi. Someone brings more of an iced-focused Lexi. And I just did bring extra blues to play through all of the Frostbites. Like, how much do I need to respect the random tier C deck that just happens to get there?
I think knowing how to play into them is always going to be really important. Like, your matchup and your game plan knowledge is going to be kind of crucial, but you know the ceiling on what Fi can do. You know the kind of hands they need to put together in order to put out the big damage. And generally speaking, the big damage they put out is not lethal. If, for example, I played in London, I played a lot of LL side events because the Battle Hardened was capped, and I played into several Fis, and they did not have a very good day at all because the Viscerai deck that I brought and that I was playing, that I kind of took the skeleton from Chris Ayali, from if you just see your cards in the right sequence and they see theirs in the right sequence, Viscerai will win out, generally speaking, and turn to turn will present more damage. So that's kind of a thing you need to prepare for, just making sure your deck can do something every turn. It's not just, I get to sit back and wait and eventually I win, right? The thing, I think this section of the video could be very much just called, well, my local illusionists are coming to skirmish.
Yeah.
Because this is what brings Prism out. This is what brings Dromai out. Enigma, not so much, didn't really have the same sauce as those two in particular. Hasn't been gone long enough for people to really miss. But that's one of those things. If you're a diehard Icelander player, maybe don't. You have to remember a couple of things about Icelander. One, I think 2 or 3 people are responsible for most of Icelander's Living Legend points. Shout out to Michael Hamilton and Ray Adams. Other than that, it was just a very consistently good deck that played on a very fair axis, that interacted very favorably with the CC metagame of its day, which was very, very importantly after PT Lille and after Prism had rotated. So you have to, I think the way I would look at it is you need to look at, like, what do you think the top decks are, what's kind of the layer below, and then what are the well, I like it, so I'm going to bring it.
So that's, I mean, we can get into that. I don't need you to break down however many heroes are legal for LL, especially because it's just all of the CC ones too. But what do you think are the top decks currently? And then I guess more importantly, for people who are considering bringing their favorite hero, what are the decks that just don't, like the Lexis that were very good at the time, or the Icelanders that were very good at the time, but just maybe haven't gotten any relevant support for LL since they LL'd?
Obviously, we'll start with Ira. Ira is the deck that won the most recent Battle Hardened in the hands of Naib Mobasir. Obviously, very good player, very, very strong, consistent deck. You're going to need to have some kind of game plan into that, which is very hard because it's just a consistency deck now. Actually, before I get into all of this, something could change in September. We don't know that yet.
Yeah, sure. We've got at least one ban and restricted announcement between now and, let's say we're just prepping for calling Philadelphia. So we got at least one Battle Hardened between now and then. We have a whole set.
Yeah. If we're prepping in the dark, I'd say your top tier are Ira, Briar.
Okay.
Because she has sneakily been accumulating cards since hitting LL.
Yeah.
You know, we've got a couple new Earth Blues that are 4 blocks. Got all of those Aurora cards, because Skyward Serenade is not a spec.
No.
NIMBY as well. Dash.io. That you're always going to see Dash.io in and around the top tables. It is a deck that can kind of, I think, fall to itself a little bit, but its power spikes are unmatched. We all saw Sam Sutherland in the World Championships styling on Matt Rogers.
Yeah.
I would say those are your top 3 big ones coming in.
Okay.
And then the rest are either a step below or looking to attack the metagame in a very particular way. I don't think you could put Starvo too low just based on if you draw well, it doesn't actually matter. I would have Viscerai kind of in and around that. Took a hit for the sins of another Runeblade, which is unfortunate, but in the grand scheme of things, you've still got Bloodshot Skeleton, you've still got Sunlight Arcanics, you can still do very, very powerful things, which, you know, took me pretty far in a calling. Chain's probably still up there because the LL Battle Hardened in London wasn't won by the RuneGate version of the deck, it was run by the Boomer version of Chain.
Yeah.
Now, it was won in the hands of Nova-chan, so that your mileage may vary, but losing something like Carrion Husk is a massive hit, so I am not sure how that's quite borne out yet, because it was just one turn where you got to ignore whatever your opponent was doing and just be like, here's my armor, deal with it. Prism, always going to be there. Not just because she has the most obnoxious fans in the world. It's just powerful. It's just a very powerful thing that interacts in a very particular game plan that most people can't deal with if you can't generate action points, if you can't go wide enough, if you bring Starvo, or if you want to play Kyle Florian or something like that. You're really putting yourself in quite a bit of danger to a Prism just establishing a board and running you over. Especially with the rule change, that means if you attack with a weapon in your Florian deck, for example, if you attack with a weapon aiming at a aura, you still lose your rune chance.
Yeah.
Aurora as well, you might be happy to know, still kind of up there. You are playing a dangerous game by introducing 6 to 9 more no blocks in your deck in the form of Ball Lightning, but it's still pretty powerful. Like, Ball Lightning is a card that got banned back when I started playing. I got to play with it for a while, and you're going to have a great time. I recommend anyone who's watching this who wants to play Aurora, learn how replacement effects work, because you're going to explain it a lot. Because Ball Lightning, Arcane Barrier, and 1 arcane damage becomes a big fun conversation.
What do you mean your Ball Lightning is dealing 3 arcane?
Yeah, because you see, it's a replacement effect, and it's my turn, so I get to choose the your opponent will just fall asleep. I'm trying to think now. That kind of rounds out the top tier. I think Dromai is kind of pushing on the edge. The new boots are incredibly powerful. Being able to go double Kyloria, double Chromai, double Asvalai with just 1 dragon, you get to go, I'll attack with it again, actually.
Yeah.
Why not? But I don't think it's been overly explored, and I did see quite a few gravy bones knocking around in that Battle Hardened in Singapore as well.
Yeah, I know the Gravy Bones players were like, you just get to play cash in, and in a deck that just makes gold for free, cash in should be pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, cash in was always good. That was the problem.
Yeah,
that's why it's banned. Whereas like some of the cards that draw cards were not banned because they're just unplayable. Unfortunately, shout out to my boy Tom of the Firebrand. We never got to see what that could do. And then I think kind of in the mix, you've got Icelander, which should have a good time into some of the matchups in there, but will always struggle into Prism.
Yeah.
And a lot of the other decks have gotten more powerful while she's very much stayed static. Also, I think CYB new is probably a nightmare as well.
I would think so. And I know Icelander, she's still... Like, Icelander's card quality was never great. It was just what she did with the cards. So she was always playing Cold Snap and Polar Blast, which, like, wow, a blue 2-block that doesn't do damage is not good. But it played into her play pattern. But then here we are 2 years later, and LL Icelander is still playing Cold Snap and Polar Blast. And it's like...
Yeah.
Okay, that's not good.
Yeah, like a lot of people are looking at things like, oh, but Channel the Bleak Expanse is really good. Like, you need it in your arsenal at the right time to sneak it out, or it does nothing.
Yeah.
Which is the big problem. A lot of her cards are very good, so are you going to put a bad card in your deck to try and solve a problem?
Yeah,
I don't know. Just again, Icelander is one of those decks that has a lot of fans. A lot of fans, which I can understand. It was a very cool and interesting deck, unless you were playing Briar all the time, like I was. There's quite a few decks that I think are almost there. Like Icelander would be one that I would consider almost there. Lexi is almost there because you have that sort of damage potential. I'd say Fi is almost there, not quite.
That's always been Fi's problem. Ever since he lost Belittle in CC, he's almost there. And then you look at him in LL, and you're still... Like, one of my patrons asked me going into skirmish, hey, how should I build Fi? And showed me a list, and I'm thinking, well, I think if you build Fi, you get cool stuff like... You should put a bunch
of blues in your deck.
You get a bunch of blues, you can play Ignite, you have the new boot, so you get to do cool stuff like Ignite, Pitch Blue, Ember Blade, Break Boots, Ember Blade, which works with Spreading Flames, but not with Study Hammers. But then you're still playing, like, kind of the Icelander problem. You're still playing all of the same cards that you were playing before. You're still playing your Ronin Renegade. You're putting Phoenix Flame, the worst card in your card pool, into your deck so you can play Flame Call Awakening, which is also not a good card unless you're comboing off. And then, like so you said, you run into this, like... Yeah. And then it's like, well, just play Zen. Like, at that point, just play a better hero.
Yeah. Just put 30 blues in your deck. Some of them are chi, and then you kill your opponent. Zen, I think, is always in a weird spot because since the sort of limitation on bonds, we kind of haven't seen it crack into a bunch of top 8s. It's always there. It's always present. Dan Grossclose, I believe, won a event with Zen, and then it kind of fell off after that. But again, has access to the needle package.
Yeah.
Now you've got blue pick up the points, which are just blue go agains that turn on your transcend. And when you transcend, you can use that to pay the resource to pick up your needle. But, you're never giving up on Stubby Hammerers in Zen because it represents too much damage.
Yeah.
At least in my experience. Prism, like I said, way up the top. We'll always see that regardless of how good she is. That's a deck that people will just bring. So you need a Prism game plan in this format.
Do you think... well, people are going to play whichever one they like more, I suppose. We're going to have the old Prism players are always going to bring old Prism, but I think Prism, just that there are 2 Prisms. Like, which one do you think is more competitive? Do you think it's a meta call? And do you think... Like, I can't imagine that too many diehard Prism players are going to say, no, I won't play Awakener of Soul. Like, it has to be Sculptor of Arclight. Like, I think they're just going to say, it has Prism in the name, so I'm good.
Yeah, I like having 8 extra life in such an aggressive format, especially with things like Rune Blades presenting a ton of extra damage, Ira presenting tons of uninteractable damage, clearing out your heralds or your angels. Also, you only get the 1 angel attack per turn if you're playing Luminaris. And realistically, if you're playing a light illusionist, you're playing a Luminaris deck. You're not playing Prism.
Yeah.
because that was the real power behind that deck.
Right.
It was one of, if not the most busted weapon in the history of Flesh and Blood. You could just turn your entire board state into daggers. But again, this is where we're looking at the decks that are Prism does something kind of unfair and skews a bunch of matchups. Same with Zen, Dio, Briar can do very unfair things while also doing very fair things. Briar's biggest upside, obviously, is the fact that embodiments of Earth are broken.
Yeah.
And, you know, even Viscerai to an extent, because Bloodsheet Skeleton is an incredibly problematic design for a card. But there's always going to be people who want to bring whatever they want to bring. I can't see any reason. Like, people do bring and show up with Berserk KO and then try and do the thing and die.
Yeah.
So I think you need to have a good read on your local meta if you want to know that. If you want to pick up one of the top heroes, you want to make sure you're doing something broken. That's the end of the day. Some kind of interaction in the game that is fundamentally unfair that only that deck you are playing can do.
Okay. No, that's a good way to put it.
That's how I view Eternal formats in general.
Yeah, if you have the entire card pool available to you, you should be playing the broken cards. You should be playing the cards that were banned from the main format because they were too good or too broken or were difficult enough to interact with. That's
why we have a lot of people I know testing things like Basilio with all the books, because Lightning Greaves and books is busted.
Yeah, getting to play Channel Thunder Step and pay 1 to give your Tome of Aetherwind go again.
Yes, which is cool and all, but you're also still very, 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 very squishy.
Yeah.
And that's another problem. And I know, for example, I spoke to Pete Budensick and Kale and Majin Bay in Chicago, and they were, well, Majin was a side event gamer all weekend because the two of them looked at the room and went, it's not a good environment for Kano. All the best decks can play like Spell Void 3 and AB 3. This just, it ain't it.
Yeah.
So, you know, bring your wizard package because people will show up with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
sort of like
it's very slotted.
The Prism play, like you know, we have the Prism players that are always going to play Prism. We're always going to have the Kano players that will always only play Kano.
Yeah. And like, that is a matchup that if you know how to navigate it properly and you come prepared, great. Because Kano thrives on a room that's not prepared for it.
Yeah.
Look at Pro Tour 1.
Mm-hmm.
Bunch of Starvos with no AB or 1 AB getting killed. That's what it is.
Yeah.
But it's going to be very interesting as ProQuest season comes up, because I think that's what's going to really shape the metagame for Worlds in this game, in this format.
No, I think that's a really good point. You and I were talking before we started recording that we're in coming into week 3 of skirmish season, and so far we have seen no data from LSS about what decks are winning. We get our nice little pie charts for Blitz that just show like X number of heroes have won X number of games, and then nothing from LL. So the only thing we do have to go on is Battle Hardens.
Yeah, and like, no disrespect to anyone who's won a Battle Hardened, it's not easy. But also any deck can run hot on a day and get through a Battle Hardened. It's the things like the Calling at Chicago was a very interesting one for a lot of people because it showed how diverse the metagame was at the top levels. Because like, we didn't get this overwhelming representation of just Starvo or just Zen. You know, we got a few Rune Blades, we got a bit of everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what it's going to be. Like, it's a very wide open format right now. And to quote Sam Black, the Magic player, he said, when a format is this open, the reward isn't winning the tournament, it is showing the company that they should ban or restrict something.
Shout out to Pete Budensick, who showed them that they should ban Open the Floodgates in LL.
That's so true, and thank God for that. Who needs 6 books and 9 floodgates?
Do you think, speaking of bans, we've got a ban of Restricted coming out in 5 days. Do you think anything, especially with as little data as we have externally, I'm sure LSS knows a lot more about the health of the format than we do and trends. do you think does anything jump out and you think, yeah, that should be banned or restricted or removed from the restricted list and moved up to either 3 copies or 0?
I need to have another look at the restricted list. But I wouldn't think anything right out needs to be banned, but I would put the needles on a clock.
Okay.
For the same reason that they were hit in CC, they interact in a way that was not intended when they were made.
Right.
Which I think is a big deal. Because it's not like cards that interact well. Obviously, the needles interact really well with Retrieve, but they were not designed in an environment that Retrieve existed in.
Right.
Whereas something like, I'll go back to my old favorite in Bloodsheet Skeleton, was designed, like Crucible came just before Monarch.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Sonata Arcanix was designed with this card in mind.
Yeah.
They just didn't expect it to be quite as good as it was, and for people to go as all in on making Rune Chants as they did at the time. I know for the health of the format, they've gotten rid of Crown of Seeds because they really, really want to control Starvo.
Mm-hmm.
But as I've talked about it with yourself, if there is one thing that is holding back designing good elemental cards or having good elemental cards in the format, maybe the problem isn't the enablers.
Yeah, I mean, as an Aurora player, part of what makes me not want to play her in LL is that I only get to play 1 Somersault. Easily the coolest card in Aurora, and it isn't Aurora, it isn't Acilio, and it isn't Briar who are making that card too good.
Yeah. Like, Briar gets to play 1, which is like, oh, cool. I'll rebuy this attack, send it again on my Channel Mount turn. But, yeah, it makes restricting cards hard when you have a card like Somersault in the format.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think the big thing for a lot of people is going to be getting into the format from where they are. Going forward.
It's a weird value proposition. Like, I played Naib's Ira list for my skirmish, and just because it was the deck that I had the most cards for, I would have preferred to play Briar just to scratch that Runeblade itch. But I didn't play Briar back when she was legal, so I'm missing my Channel Mount Heroics and my Swarming Gloom Veils, some of the expensive cards to buy and just to borrow. But I look at the price tag on the Ira list, it's like $1,300. If I trim the weakest links for my meta, it goes way down, which compared to a deck like Slippy or a deck like Gravy and CC, that is really affordable, much more affordable. It's like easily 2/3 of the price. But you're asking people, especially new players who just came in with Mistveil or High Seas, these like very notable popularity spikes in the game, you're asking them to have these cards that they just not only weren't playing the game during release, but the heroes that were using those cards also weren't legal anymore. So it's a weird, like, in theory this deck is cheaper, but you also have to shell out a ton of money right now because you didn't have these cards when they were current.
Yeah, it's a weird one for me as a Fab Boomer. I got in at Tales of Aria, and I've been in the game since, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And it is a hard ask for a lot of people to have a second deck when, you know, for a discussion in another video would be the price of the game.
I don't think anyone's made that video before. I should really think about that. Is anyone talking about this? The price of Fab?
Yeah, like it is, as eternal formats go in card games, incredibly affordable.
Yeah.
Which, you know, we quoted some big prices there, but like, I used to play Modern. I have friends who play Legacy in Magic, and that's a different kettle of fish.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And the fact that so many of your, like, Tunic is playable in CC and LL. There's no, like, but you gotta buy, there's no dual lands, right, in Flesh and Blood. So there's no, like, it's Tunic, but it's Super Tunic that's only legal in LL and actually costs $500.
Yeah, like, I think one of the most important things to getting into the game is start from where you are. Obviously, that means if you bought into Gravy Bones, congratulations on affording Gravy Bones, but you don't have any cards for the top end of the Living Legend format. But, you know, Dash Out Armory deck, that was a pretty good one. Did a big, that's a big chunk of DO right there.
Yeah.
Ira's like a pile of generically good cards, and Zephyr Needles.
Yeah.
Obviously, you need your equipment from the Hunted.
You need your flick knives, your mask of momentum, but yeah, for the most part, Naib's Ira deck largely came from the Hunted, which out of print currently, but by a few months.
The way I kind of have looked at it is, it's the same getting into any format. You need to find a playstyle that suits you. However, be warned that the game in LL is very much aggro combo. That is the top end of the format.
Yeah.
Aggro combo, mid-rangey aggro. Like, when you're talking about the Rune Blades, you've got Briar, Chain, Viscerai, Aurora, all legal. If you bought into Aurora, that's the world's cheapest conversion because it's 9 Ball Lightnings and 3 Sting of Sorceries.
Yeah.
And I know Aggro Blaze has done a bunch of content about that. So that deck was very, very affordable, very, very cheap to put together. Yep. Starvo is literal draft chaff held together by a bunch of cards. Go, if your store has a Tales of Aria bulk box, dig in and you'll come away with 2/3 of a Starvo deck.
Yeah.
Same with Icelander. Icelander played a ton of bulk from Uprising.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you just need to find a deck that you enjoy playing. Like, more so than anything else, I feel like Flesh and Blood obviously is a very skill expressive game, and Living Legend is going to reward people who play their decks incredibly well and know their matchups.
I think that's a big selling point for LL. We've got in CC now, the 0.5 times modifier with the intention of keeping new heroes around longer so that you never have to be afraid of losing your Aurora deck once you just bought into it. And LL is even more than that. You could have just been playing Icelander since Uprising, and you could have never stopped because you just love the deck that much. And now you're going to be in a great position. Even if she's at the bottom end of playable, you still just know every single matchup so well, and they will never take that deck from you. You, at least currently, unless there's a living legend format for Starvo exclusively, your hero will never be illegal, ever, in Living Legend.
Yeah, like, I think Briar is relatively affordable as well if you have most of the Runeblade stuff, because Viscerai was there, and that, between Viscerai and like a lot of the cards, I don't know, Channel Mount Heroic might have gotten more expensive, but I spent most of the time I was playing Channel Mount Heroic was pretty cheap.
I looked it up recently. I think it's like $2 on TCG Player.
I think if you're buying into Flesh and Blood, you're looking at the expensive generics. Most of those are a tech choice in the game, in LL in particular. And if you're prepping for ProQuests or calling, your tech choices are very, very limited, in my opinion, because you cannot predict what the metagame is going to be. More so LL than any format.
That's a great point. Like, the meta is so wide open. The weakest link in its time, when the Mistveil heroes were legal in CC, was so expensive because you knew you were going to run into a deck that had non-blocks, and you're going to need the weakest link. At this point in LL, if we're saying that Zen is sort of on that threshold of top deck, unplayable, just based on the meta, based on how Zen draws, if he finds his big turn before you kill him, the current top decks, Briar, Ira, you don't need the weakest link. The weakest link is actively bad against those heroes, but you know what's good against some of those heroes? Erase Face, that's a Majestic, but it's less expensive than the weakest link. Humble, that's a rare.
Yeah, and like, you need to look at the thing is that, like, the weakest link obviously hits the Mistveil heroes, hits Prism, does, like you said, does nothing to Briar, does nothing to Viscerai, does nothing to Chain, does nothing to Ira, does nothing to Starvo, unless you find them with the one turn they have an Awakening, and then they will just take the damage, respond to the trigger, play their Awakening, and then you actively get punished for attacking them, so congratulations. I think the things that, like you said, Erase Face, also really good into Dash.io. Weakest link is good, Erase Face is better.
Yeah.
Because if you hit a mech with a Erase Face, they cannot boost.
Yeah.
They do not have mechanologist items. They don't have a mechanologist gun or pistol.
Yep. A Dash.io could have a hand with no items, but a Dash.io cannot have a hand with no mech cards.
No, that would be a very poor planning. Or or you're a savage and you're here to full fatigue and you're just tricking people.
Pistol Plan-IO.
Rosesmith did it. It worked for a while.
At that point, you should bring the weakest link because you'll hit their count your blessings.
You're so right, John. You're a genius.
You're looking at the calling champion right here.
Called shot. Right. Someone clip that. I can't bully him while I'm on video with him.
Sure you can. I know you're a big fan of LL. I'm just getting into it. Honestly, I'm liking it more than I thought I would. My opinion of LL, really before starting to practice for skirmish season, was this is just all my high school bullies in one place. Why would I want to go to my reunion if it's just all my bullies? But the format's been pretty fun so far. And that said, LSS is really pushing this super hard. Skirmish season, ProQuest season, Worlds, particularly the World's top 8. They completely warped the formula of top 8, so that top 8 will need to play at least one game of Living Legend. The calling is Living Legend. Do you think that LL is in a place where it should be pushed this hard? Again, LSS has all the data. They have all of their information as far as what heroes are doing well, what cards might need to be looked at. The players know none of this. We just know that every couple of months we get a BNR where they say Chain is banned now, and that's it. Do you think that... I understand that LL needs to be pushed at some point. LSS wants an eternal format, and they want an alternative to Classic Constructed, because more game modes always mean that if one format is in a bad place, players can go to another format that is in a better place, and LSS just doesn't bleed their player base out. But do you think now is the time, or did we need more time to maybe ban some more cards, unrestrict some cards, maybe Starvo shouldn't be a legal hero, any of this stuff?
I think in terms of all of that, now is a good time. We have had enough heroes leave the format. We have had an entire metagame actually start developing in LL, because it's not like Barcelona 2023, where we had 8 Starvos in the top 8. Every top 8 is very diverse, so now is a good time to start pushing it. It's also a good time because while the player base grows, there are a lot of players who've been very invested in the game, and now some of them hitched their wagon to Tekla-Vossen and they got a deck that's never LLing, baby. But, you know, there are players like you who's had a deck leave the format, has another deck that, even though he's been kind of on the crawl and isn't quite there, Fi has been getting pretty close. I've lost Briar, I played a bit of Lexi, Viserai, you know, sure. I played Starvo. They were all strong decks, and they left the format. And there's a lot to be said. Same with Prism, same with Dromai. There's a lot to be said for giving those enfranchised players who loved playing certain things a game mode where they can play them.
Okay.
And skirmish is nice. Skirmishes are fun, but a lot of us are competitive players, and with that competitive mindset, skirmishes aren't quite scratching that itch.
No.
So I spoke to the big man himself in London. I spoke to James White, and he told me to look out for big LL pushes coming this year. And I completely can see what he meant, and I totally believe it, because while the LL side events weren't obviously the biggest side events that I've participated in Pro Tour London, they were some of the most fun because everyone was there. Yeah. Playing a deck that they loved and that they knew. Like, it's also given me a chance to sort of go back to decks that I knew and was good at the time. Maybe when I wasn't feeling CC quite as much, I could go like work on this Viserai deck. Yeah. And figure it out and metagame that deck for what I kind of would be worried about. The other thing, I think, for a lot of people, LL is being so diverse. You're not going to be able to cover all your bases, so just worry about what's the big problems and hope that the power level of your decks are going to carry you through. That's like playing broken, fun, strong cards is fun. That's why we do it. That's why people played full power Zen. You know? And that's what I'm really looking forward to in LL. It's why some of the only Magic the Gathering content I still watch is Vintage and Legacy, because I like to see broken card interactions that were never really planned for.
Yeah.
And that's what you get from LL.
Okay.
Not just your old heroes, but your old heroes interacting with new cards in a way that they weren't really supposed to.
No, absolutely. Like, for anyone who has not been playing LL, liked your old hero, hasn't been playing LL, is only getting back into it now. And we talked about how Icelander didn't get any new cards and is still playing with Cold Snap and Polar Blast, but man, you sit down and you start building Briar, and you're like, Burn Up Shock, Regrowth Shock, Everbloom Life. Like, suddenly you're not having to play the bad blues to keep your channel mount around. You get to play the good blues that also block 4. Like, Eclectic Magnetism into Burn Up Shock is a disgusting interaction that did not exist when Briar was legal in CC.
Eclectic Magnetism, forget about Burn Up Shock. Eclectic Magnetism, oh my god, it's actually a plunder run. Steal a card from you because I get to draw. Even going Skyward Serenade, get my Skizzik, make my embodiment.
Yeah.
Attack with Nimby, go get a Nimblism. Play that Nimblism, create an embodiment, attack with Skizzik. Like, this is the sort of stuff I live for in that Briar deck, and trust me when I say it. And shout out to the card guys. Nathan Crawford knows. We have both registered some bad cards in Briar. You don't really need to do that anymore, especially in a format with one Warmongers in it.
Yep. I watched my buddy play Eclectic Magnetism last night, and did you know that Channel Mount Heroic as an attack reaction is pretty cool?
I did, because very famously that happened at Pro Tour Lille a bunch.
And
Matthew Folks playing Spellbound Creepers in his Channel Mount Heroic Force of Nature deck.
What a disgusting interaction. So yeah, to your point, and LL is just full of that.
Yeah. Like, you get to do the most powerful things. If this doesn't sound fun to you, enjoy dry cornflakes, I guess. I don't know.
If this doesn't sound fun to you, get used to it, because they are pushing LL very hard.
Yeah. I'm happy to talk LL all day. I think the format is so interesting, and right now is a great time to get involved because it's unexplored.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, no one has really done much exploration since the most recent changes, where Starvo lost Crown of Seeds, Ruingate Chain was taken out back.
Mm-hmm.
It's the whole new thing, and we've got 31 expansion slots coming in Super Slam. All the expansion slots for Earth so far have been busted in Briar.
Bangers.
What do you mean I don't need to play blue 2-block non-attacks anymore?
No.
All of my blues now block 3, which means they block 4.
Yep, and that's pretty good.
Yeah, and Viserai, Skeletor. Incidentally, Skeletor playable in every Runeblade, not just Viserai. You ever Blossoming Spellblade off cracking your Vexen Quill hand?
Can't say that I have.
No, that's us.
I mean, the big question is, what are you playing in Philadelphia?
Do you want me to get the Artist-Proof Briar, the Marvel Briar, the Young Marvel Briar, the original Coldfoil Briar, or the errata Coldfoil Briar?
I think you and I are going to be doing some Briar deck building before then, because I've been playing Ira. I've been playing Ira for now, but the more I see people play Briar, the more I'm like, the monkey brain activates, the neuron fires. Like, I can just do that.
I literally have Rosetta Thorn tattooed on my arm. You better believe I'm bringing it back, kicking it old school, 2021-22 style, where everyone called it Flesh and Runeblade.
Mm-hmm. It's a pretty good class.
So back.
Well, we've been talking for quite a while. If there's anything else, if you want any last thoughts, any plugs, knock yourself out. Now is your time.
I think, my last thoughts on LL is, like, make sure you're doing something broken, but don't get too upset when something broken gets done. You have to laugh, because it's a silly format as well at the end of the day. Like, we're all playing card games, but understand everyone's doing something broken or they're not at the top tables. This is the same in CC. You have to be doing the most efficient thing. In LL, the efficient thing just happens to be insane. Other than that, big shout out to Go Again Gaming. Please go check out the League That Means Nothing on YouTube, where you will see me talking more about Flesh and Blood, and you might see a familiar face there.
Every once in a while. Every once in a while I pop in.
Yeah. Other than that, you can find me, findalspirit.bsky.social, and getting very hyped. I will be in Philadelphia, not for Worlds this time, but I will be doing my best to win that calling. 20th was fine. I'd like to get higher next time.
No, I will see you there. I will also be in Philadelphia for the calling.
Excellent.
We got 2 months to prepare. I'm looking forward to it.
Sound. We'll get some practice in during the week, maybe.
Oh yeah. All right. Well, Ian, thank you for being here. Really appreciate it. This was a good conversation. Put me in a better spot for how to prep for this format. So yeah, and anytime you want to talk LL, hopefully we can get some gameplay for the channel. There's a lot to explore.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, until the next time I see you all, take care.